What happens when you finally wake up, and that fire that used to burn you from the inside out suddenly doesn't ignite anything at all? They promised you that spiritual awakening would feel like an explosion of light, like clarity, purpose, inner power. But instead, you found something else, something colder, something emptier, something real. You, the sensitive one, the seeker, the soul that never settled for what the world offered. You started seeing beyond the masks. You began to understand the game. You noticed how life plays on autopilot, like a soulless dance, choreographed by habit, fear, and routine. And when your eyes opened, it wasn't the light that blinded you. It was the silence. A silence so thick, so sacred, yet so uncomfortable, as if something inside you had stopped working. You no longer wanted to chase anything. You didn't feel the urge to impress, to compete, or even to arrive anywhere. The desire to prove yourself simply dissolved. And in its place, an eerie calm took over, a kind of hollow peace. Does that sound familiar? That sensation that the soul turned off the lights, but forgot to switch on new ones. Your body's still alive, but the fire isn't. Your mind recognizes that something has shifted, but it can't quite decode what your heart already knows, that the old motivation is gone. You're not alone. This happens to those who truly awaken, not the ones who just read about spirituality or talk about it to sound wise, but the ones who actually live it, the ones who dare to die before they die, the ones who are no longer satisfied with noise, applause, or costume roles. But no one talks about this part, right? No one warns you that the hidden cost of awakening is losing everything you thought you were. And without ego, without script, without stage, how do you move? Where do you act from? This isn't a motivational speech meant to get you back on your feet. This is an invitation to look at that void without fear, to understand why you feel the way you feel, to discover that in that stillness, in that hole, in that apparent nothingness, there is a seed you don't know how to name yet, but one that has already started to germinate within you. They told you that awakening meant finding your purpose, your fire, your center. They sold you enlightenment like it was a shortcut to fulfillment, as if simply seeing the truth would make you feel alive again. But no one told you that sometimes seeing the truth turns you off, because the drive you used to have wasn't really yours. It came from the ego. It was a force born out of fear, fear of not being enough, fear of not belonging, fear of not being seen. And when you awaken, fear melts away. But with it, so does the fuel that made you run. You stop, not out of laziness, not because you've lost interest, but because something within you simply cannot keep moving the way it used to. What once inspired you now feels ridiculous. The goals that once excited you now seem fake, and it's right there, in that strange stillness, that the fall begins. But the fall is not downward, it is inward. It's a silent unlearning, like your soul is slowly erasing, one by one, all the instructions you were given since childhood. Be someone, do more, prove your worth. But what if there's nothing left to prove? What if worth isn't earned, but remembered? That's where the limbo begins. The ego falls. But the true self hasn't taken form yet. The motivation that used to drive you dies. But the new one hasn't found its voice. And there you are, suspended, confused, silent. This is the hidden cost of awakening. It's not instant peace. It's total dismantling. It's like tearing down a house before knowing what the next one will look like. And in the meantime, there's only rubble. And without a home, without a script, without urgency. You feel strange. You look in the mirror and don't recognize your reflection. You wonder why nothing excites you anymore. What once felt like life now seems like a badly lit stage. No applause, no meaning, no direction. But listen to this carefully. That is not failure. It's transition. It is the exact process that begins when the soul starts to take control of the body again. Because the ego always screamed, but the soul whispers. And in the middle of that muffled noise, you begin to hear the first murmur. It's not a command. It's not a duty. It's not an obligation. It's more like a breeze, a subtle shift, a barely perceptible movement. Yet, it's real. And suddenly, you understand. You didn't lose motivation. You lost the mask. What comes next bears no resemblance to anything you've ever experienced. Because what follows now will no longer be driven by fear. It will come from truth. It all starts quietly. One morning, you wake up without the usual urgency, without the old sense of direction. One night, you find yourself staring at the ceiling, not thinking about anything in particular, just floating. You hear your friends talk about goals, travels, dreams achieved, and you listen silently as if you've already lived it all in another life. There's a weight in your chest that you can't name. It's not sadness, it's not laziness, it's something else, something heavier, quieter. And so you begin to ask yourself, what's happening to me? Why don't I want anything? Why doesn't anything excite me anymore? Did I break inside? Did something disconnect and never come back? But no, you're not broken. You're just without reference points, because the old ones no longer work. They no longer resonate. They were answers that belong to a version of you that no longer exists. What no one tells you about awakening is that it's not a destination. It's a demolition. It's not a constant state of illumination. It's temporary blindness, like when a bright light hits your eyes and blinds you first, before you learn to see again, with different eyes. And in that strange in-between, you become blind at the level of the soul. You don't know what you want. You don't know what your purpose is anymore. And the uncertainty becomes total. Outside, the world keeps spinning with its slogans. Follow your dreams. Never stop. Make it count. But you hear all that as noise. Those phrases feel like they're meant for someone else. Someone who still operates from the ego, who still needs to be someone instead of just being. And there it is, the real conflict. No one prepared you for the silence that follows awakening. Because this silence isn't emptiness, it's a crater, a sacred echo that keeps repeating one truth. I am no longer what I was, but I don't yet know what I am. Can you live in that space? Can you stay in that strange place with no identity, no plan, no direction? Most people can't. Most people run. They numb themselves. They put the costume back on. They return to the race, even if deep down they no longer believe in it. They convince themselves it was just a phase, that going back is easier than living at the threshold. But you don't fit anymore, and you know it, because trying to fit in again only makes you feel emptier. It's as if your soul is whispering, "Don't push me back into what no longer vibrates." That's why you're tired. Not tired of the world. Tired of pretending you still believe in it. Not tired of life. Tired of performing. Not tired of doing. Tired of forcing yourself to do from a self that quietly died. This is where the old fire burns out, and the new spark hasn't ignited yet. You're in between fires, between identities, between systems of meaning. You're a chrysalis, not a caterpillar, not yet a butterfly, just a shapeless, unproductive thing that serves no immediate function. But inside that shapelessness, everything is there, everything new, everything real. And yes, it hurts, because no one applauds you for pausing. No one celebrates your emptiness. Society doesn't know what to do with someone who isn't running, who isn't chasing, who doesn't have answers. So you start judging yourself. You call yourself lazy, lost, useless, but you're not. You're being rewired from the inside. Carl Jung knew this. That's why he spoke of the nigredo, the dark night of the soul, the stage where the ego dissolves and the self begins to take form. But that process is silent, it's blind, it's slow, and you have only one option: stay. Hold yourself through the not knowing. Trust through the not feeling. Because if you run now, if you force yourself to produce, to perform, to go back to the familiar, you will betray yourself. And the soul doesn't forget betrayal. It will wait. Always. It will wait in silence. Until one day, you stop running long enough to finally hear it. Carl Jung never romanticized awakening. He didn't dress it up in pastel colors or wrap it in sweet, comforting words. For him, true transformation didn't begin with a divine revelation. It began with a brutal unraveling. The fall of the ego wasn't the end. It was the threshold, the entry point to the journey toward the self, that deeper identity that needs no mask, no external validation to exist. Jung called it individuation, a process of integration, of becoming whole. Not better, not more positive, not more successful, just more real. And to become real, he said, we must go through the shadow, through everything we deny, repress, and hide. It's not about flying toward the light, it's about descending into the basement and lighting a single candle. This is why Jung spoke of the nigredo, the dark stage of internal alchemy. That phase where everything old decays, where the superficial self crumbles and you're left suspended in a fertile emptiness. There's no shape, no certainty, only a silence that hurts but purifies, a silence that burns yet prepares. In that silence, what once seemed like motivation reveals itself as performance, and what once felt like depression becomes the soul's rest. Because you're not unmotivated, you're simply done with lying. You can no longer force yourself to do what you don't feel. You can no longer sell your energy to a system that doesn't recognize your truth. Jung also spoke of enantiodromia, that moment when something, pushed to its extreme, flips into its opposite. The ego that runs endlessly collapses. The drive to achieve, conquer, impress, transforms into a deep longing to disappear. Not as an escape, but as a necessity, to begin again, from another route. And here enters the archetype of the hermit. Not the escapist recluse, but the wise one who retreats in order to listen, to reorder the inner chaos, to prepare for a return, not driven by performance, but by authenticity. Sometimes disappearing isn't giving up, it's protecting the seed of something new. But the world hates that stage. It mistakes it for failure. It pathologizes it, tries to medicate it, speed it up, correct it, because the modern world idolizes productivity and despises mystery. But the soul is not in a rush. The self is not born under pressure. It only emerges when the ego yields, when the persona goes quiet. That's why Jung said that enlightenment doesn't consist in imagining figures of light. It means making the darkness conscious. And that is exactly what you're doing, even if it doesn't look like it, even if no one sees it, even if you doubt it. You are illuminating a part of yourself that has been dormant for years, maybe even lifetimes. The self that used to perform is dead. The script that held you up has burned away. And now you're here, waiting, listening, rebuilding. You don't know how, and you have nothing to show for it. But this is sacred. This is spiritual bravery. Because remaining in the void takes more courage than chasing 1,000 goals. Individuation is not a destination. It's a constant passage between death and rebirth, between confusion and clarity, between who you were and who you don't yet know you can become. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming who you've always been, beneath all the roles, beneath all the masks. And yes, the path is lonely, because no one can walk it for you. You can have guides, books, signs, but the real journey is internal. And sometimes all you can do is stay still, not move, not distract yourself, not betray yourself. Just hold on, even when nothing has form yet. This is what Jung meant by living symbolically. It means listening to the soul, letting dreams speak, sensing where the inner wind is blowing. It means not deciding from the anxious mind, but from resonance, from the body, from that part of you that can't explain, but knows how to recognize. Because the self doesn't push, the self calls. And now you're beginning to hear it. And then, just when you thought everything was lost, something starts to move. It's not fire. It's not an explosion. It's barely a tremor, as if the soul is breathing for the first time after a long sleep. You don't know why, but one day you feel the desire to write, or to walk, or simply to sit in silence and listen to the wind. Not because you have to, but because something inside says yes. It's a new kind of motivation, one that doesn't come from fear or pressure, one that doesn't scream, doesn't demand, doesn't compete. It's a gentle yet firm force, an internal pulse that seeks no applause, no outcome, no heroic goals. It just wants to express the truth, that which can no longer be hidden, that which needs to come out. Here, there is no urgency, no anxiety, no clock ticking, because the soul is not in a hurry. And finally, you realize you don't need to be either. You discover that acting from presence doesn't mean staying still. It means moving at the right time, from the right place, with a heart unburdened by need. You begin to feel something new, a strange peace, a calm that doesn't depend on whether things work out or not, because you no longer act to achieve. You act to honor what you are, what vibrates in you, what the world needs to receive through your authentic existence, not to impress, but to resonate. And the most beautiful thing is that this action, this energy, this creation becomes more powerful than any goal you once had. Because now, you no longer need applause. You're satisfied with feeling that you're not betraying your essence. You're fulfilled by that inner sense of congruence, of coherence, of deep alignment with your soul. You come to a quiet but powerful realization. You can say no without guilt. You can choose silence without feeling like you've failed. You can be present in a conversation without needing to convince anyone of anything. You begin to live from a different center, a quieter place, a more honest space, one that is rooted not in the noise of the world, but in the stillness of your own being. And from that stillness, you discover something unshakable, indestructible, a place inside you that no chaos can touch. You no longer need a map meticulously drawn by someone else's expectations. You no longer crave clear goals written in ink and stone. What you need, you already carry, a living compass. And that compass is no longer external. It's no longer someone else's voice, someone else's rulebook, someone else's approval. It lives inside of you now. And every time you align with it, Every time you listen to its subtle pull, the path unfolds. Not because you force it to, not because you push the pieces into place, but because life itself recognizes the truth inside you and responds. This is the paradox. The less you push, the more things begin to move. The less you struggle, the more things begin to flow. The less you wear masks to fit in, the more deeply you connect. Not with everyone, no, but with those who are also awakening. With those who have also dared to sit in the silence, who have heard the same wordless call and stayed long enough to hear what emerges from within it. And from this new center, from this inner alignment, you begin again. You create again. You move again. But not to fill a void, not to prove yourself, not to silence your fears. You move because the emptiness that once felt unbearable has transformed into seed, and you, almost without noticing, have become fertile soil. You've become a bridge, a channel, a vessel between what cannot be seen and what longs to be born. Motivation has not died. It has simply changed shape. It no longer burns with the frantic fire of urgency or the adrenaline of needing results. Instead, it glows with a steady flame, one that does not flicker in the wind. It is no longer about outcomes. It's about devotion. Quiet, unwavering, grounded devotion. A deep and sacred commitment. Not to performance, not to perfection, but to truth. And if you've made it this far, if these words are echoing inside of you, it's not by accident. Something within you chose to stay. In the silence, in the uncertainty, in the space where most people turn away. And that, though few will say it, is a rare kind of courage. It is an act of quiet rebellion, a sacred resistance. Because to sit in the unknown without trying to escape, it is not weakness, it is strength of the highest order. Maybe you've felt strange lately, as if the world continues to spin, and you are just still. Maybe you've been feeling disconnected, unmotivated, as if your inner compass had stopped pointing anywhere at all. Perhaps you've looked around and wondered, what happened to my fire? But you didn't forget your path. You're remembering it, not from your mind, but from your soul, from a place so deep and true that it cannot be rushed or forced. A place that takes time, that honors timing, that knows becoming is not a sprint, it is a metamorphosis. You are not lost. You are just in the chrysalis. And if any part of this message resonated with your experience, if you felt, even for a second, that someone finally put words to the invisible thing you've been carrying, then I invite you to write it down. Not for likes, not for recognition, but for yourself. So your soul can hear your voice speaking its truth out loud. So your inner knowing can be anchored in your own expression. Leave a comment that says, I'm in the chrysalis and I will emerge. That phrase is not just a slogan. It's a promise, a silent agreement between you and your essence. It's a symbol. It's your soul whispering, I didn't give up. I'm just waiting to remember my shape. And maybe, just maybe, someone on the other side of the world will read it. Someone in their own moment of solitude, in their own dark night, in their own quiet transformation. And in reading your words, they will feel less alone. So if this message speaks your language, if this frequency hums in your bones, subscribe, turn on the bell. Not for the noise of more content, but because here, we do not speak from the surface. We don't pretend. We don't perform. We sit with you in the shadows, in the mystery, in the sacred space between what was and what is yet to come. We sit with you in the chrysalis, quietly holding space, until you remember what your wings feel like. Thank you for finding the courage to look within yourself, Thank you for choosing not to run away when things felt overwhelming. Thank you for staying with yourself, even when the pain was loud and the answers were silent. That, right there, is the essence of true awakening. Not in grand revelations or external miracles, but in those quiet moments where you chose to face your truth rather than escape it. It takes incredible strength to remain still when your mind urges you to flee, when everything inside you feels like it's breaking apart. And yet, you stayed. You stayed through the confusion, through the shadows, through the doubt. That act alone, the decision to not abandon yourself, is the beginning of everything. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be. Growth rarely feels like a warm embrace. It often feels like falling apart. But even in that disintegration, something sacred is unfolding. You don't have to rush. This isn't a race. There is no destination you must reach in a certain time. No level of spiritual achievement you have to unlock. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be, even if your mind tells you otherwise. Stop measuring your progress by how much you know or how quickly you heal. That's not what this is about. This is about trust. Deep, quiet, unwavering trust. Not in the world, not in others, but in yourself. In the process that is uniquely yours. And that trust doesn't require understanding. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to figure everything out right now. In fact, some of the most beautiful transformations happen in the dark, in the confusion, in the stillness. All you really need is to trust that there is meaning in the mess, that something greater is moving through your life, even if you can't see it yet. Even if you feel lost, you're still on the path. Even if it feels like nothing is happening, everything is shifting. And when the moment comes, when the timing is right, when the pieces begin to align, you won't feel the need to escape anymore. You won't feel the weight of fear holding you back. You won't run. You'll rise. You'll fly. Because by then, you'll know who you are. Not because someone told you, not because you read it in a book or heard it in a video, but because you discovered it in the hardest, most honest place there is, within yourself. So thank you, again, for staying, for breathing through the storms, for listening to your soul when the world told you to be quiet. That is the revolution. That is the transformation. That is the awakening. Most people live more aware of other people's lives than their own. They chase after what their friends are doing, compare themselves to what others post on social media, and envy someone else's success. But when I ask them, what are you really focused on? They don't know how to answer. Everywhere I go, the conclusion is the same. Millions have forgotten that the greatest project of their life is themselves. Not their boss, not their partner, not their neighbors. You are your project. You are your investment. You are your priority. Understand this once and for all. No one is coming to save you. No one will build your discipline. No one will raise your self-esteem. No one will bring order into your life. That's your responsibility. And here's the good news. The moment you decide to focus on yourself, when you take the first step, the entire universe begins to open doors that once seemed forever closed. I want to speak to you directly, as I would in a private Jungian session. If you can't place yourself at the center of your own life, you'll always live off the crumbs of others. You'll live as a spectator instead of the main character. And I know you weren't born to be a spectator. Take a moment and tell me, what's the first thing you're going to change today to focus more on yourself? And before we continue, subscribe and share this message, because what's coming next could mark a before and after in your life. Think for a moment, how many times have you placed everyone ahead of you? Your family, your partner, your friends, your co-workers, always saying yes, even when you're exhausted inside, even when you know it's pulling you away from your dreams. That misunderstood sacrifice has a cost, and that cost is your own life. I've seen successful entrepreneurs lose their health because they never invested in themselves. I've seen mothers and fathers so drained they forgot how to dream. I've seen young people spend 10 years trying to fit into a group, only to realize they haven't taken a single step on their own path. The truth is hard. If you don't invest in yourself, the world won't invest in you. Respect, success, and opportunity come when you project strength, clarity, and direction. But if your energy is always scattered trying to please everyone, you'll end up empty. Think of it as a bank account. Every time you focus on yourself, you make a deposit into your future. Every time you neglect yourself, you make a withdrawal. And if your balance hits zero, it doesn't matter how much you try to give. There will simply be nothing left. Today's decision is clear. Start putting yourself first. Not out of ego, but out of responsibility. Because when you're strong, disciplined, and focused, you give the best of yourself to those you love. Imagine your life as a river. The water flows with power, but without direction. It disperses. It's lost. It turns into stagnant swamps. That's your energy, your thoughts, your time, your discipline. If you don't channel them toward yourself, toward your growth, your goals, they'll end up feeding other people's dreams while yours dries out. I've worked with thousands of people, and I always ask, where do you invest most of your energy each day? Most answer, work, social media, family problems, what others think of me. Very few say, in my growth, my discipline, my personal goals. And that's the difference between those who move forward and those who remain trapped in mediocrity. Those who focus on themselves advance. Those who scatter their energy on others burn out. Look, no one's asking you to ignore your family or your responsibilities, but you must understand this. Your greatest gift to the world is becoming your best version. When you are strong, your family becomes stronger. When you are disciplined, your work flourishes. When you are clear in your purpose, you inspire those around you. But when you're tired, frustrated, and lost, what can you give? Nothing. The price of not focusing on yourself is becoming a shadow of what you could have been. Remember this clearly. Energy follows attention. Wherever you place your focus, your life will grow. Focus on comparison, and envy will grow. Focus on distraction, and emptiness will grow. But focus on yourself, on your discipline, your mind, your purpose, and greatness will grow. Right now, begin to redirect your energy. Don't waste it on what you can't control. Move it toward what you can control. Your attitude, your decisions, your time. Because the power of your life lies in your own hands, not in anyone else's. In my seminars, I often ask, how many of you compared yourself to someone else today? Almost every hand goes up. And that's where the real work begins. When you finally realize that the only life you're meant to master is your own. Do you know why? Because comparison has become a toxic habit that consumes millions of people every single day. We live in an age where, with a single click, you can witness someone else's seemingly perfect life, their new car, their beach vacation, their promotion, and immediately you think, I should be there. I should have that. I'm falling behind. But here's the truth that almost no one dares to say. What you see online are results, not the process. You see victories, not the nights of doubt, the unpaid bills, or the silent failures that shaped those victories. No one shares the moments when they break down, when they feel lost, or when they question everything. Yet, you compare yourself to that illusion. Carl Jung taught that the greatest suffering of the modern man is disconnection from his own inner path. I've seen people lose years of their lives trying to reach the image of another, forgetting their own journey, their own symbolic road toward individuation, the process of becoming who they truly are. And the result is always the same: frustration, emptiness, and a painful sense that life is slipping away. Understand this: the only person you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. Are you a little more conscious today than you were before? Did you make one effort more than you did yesterday? Did you take one step closer to your authentic self? That is progress. That is self-realization. When you compete with others, you drain your energy. When you compete with yourself, you awaken your power. The man or woman who learns to focus inward, who measures progress by inner transformation rather than external validation, becomes unstoppable. Because every day adds up, every day builds strength, and every day expands consciousness. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine you're a runner on a track. If you spend your time looking at the other lanes, you lose balance, you stumble, and eventually you fall. But when your eyes remain fixed on your own lane, when your vision is directed toward your goal, you move forward with focus and strength. Life works the same way. Your race is yours, no one else's. Stop looking outward and start looking inward. Every minute you spend comparing yourself to others is a minute you don't invest in your own growth, and that time will never return. Focus on you. Make yourself your own point of reference, and every night before you sleep, ask yourself, did I move one step further than yesterday? If the answer is yes, then you are walking the right path. After decades of observing the human psyche, Carl Jung concluded that success, in its deepest sense, is never an accident. It is the result of inner discipline, the alignment between the conscious and the unconscious self. Discipline begins the moment you decide to place your inner being at the center of your life. Many mistake this for selfishness, but it is not. It is responsibility, a sacred duty to protect the vessel that carries your purpose. If you don't take care of your mind, your body, and your soul, no one else will. I've seen gifted individuals collapse because they neglected their inner world. I've seen families fall apart because someone refused to rest and reconnect with themselves. I've seen dreams fade because people constantly place themselves last. Think of it this way: before a plane takes off, the instructions are clear. In case of emergency, put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. Why? Because if you don't breathe, you can't save anyone. The same principle applies to life. If you don't have the inner discipline to strengthen yourself, sooner or later, you will not be able to hold anyone else up. The discipline of putting yourself first means creating sacred routines, waking up earlier to work on your mind, dedicating daily time to your physical and emotional health, saying no to what drains you, and yes to what elevates you. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Those who are used to your constant availability may not understand it. But remember what Jung said: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When you finally choose to honor yourself, You stop living by comparison and start living by awareness. And that, my friend, is where true freedom begins. Some will even criticize you, but listen carefully. You are not here to live according to anyone else's expectations. You are here to fulfill your inner purpose. True respect is not earned by sacrificing yourself until you disappear. It is earned when others recognize your clarity, strength, and sense of direction. And that clarity only comes when you learn to put yourself first. Today, I want you to make a firm decision. From this moment on, every action you take should bring you closer to the person you want to become. Ask yourself, does this strengthen me or weaken me? Does this bring me closer to my goal or take me further away? That inner discipline is what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. And remember, you don't need to change everything in one day. You only need to begin. Discipline is not built through great leaps, but through steady, deliberate steps. We live in the age of distraction. Never before in human history has it been so easy to lose focus. With a simple movement of your finger, you have access to endless entertainment, endless news, and endless notifications stealing your attention every second. But the problem is not technology itself. The real problem is that when you focus on everything, you focus on nothing. Carl Jung observed that the fragmented mind becomes the weakest of all. I've seen people with immense talent, unique abilities, and enormous potential who never accomplish anything great because their attention is shattered. They start a project and abandon it. They build a habit and drop it. They fill their minds with ideas, but never create anything lasting. Distraction is the silent enemy of your greatness, and each time you surrender to it, you are giving away your life in small, invisible doses. Reflect for a moment. How many hours of your day are lost to things that do not move you closer to your purpose? How many times do you open your phone for a minute and end up losing an hour? How many days have you told yourself tomorrow while being busy with trivialities? The truth is uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. If you don't control your focus, someone else will. And let me remind you, every great achievement was born from a focused mind. Edison didn't invent the light bulb while checking for updates. Beethoven didn't compose symphonies while being interrupted every 5 minutes. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations while comparing his life to others. Your success depends on a single skill: learning to silence the noise and open the path back to yourself. Because only when distraction dies, greatness is born. Jung taught that the mind expands in silence. When the inner world becomes still, the self begins to emerge. Throughout my travels and teachings, I discovered that most people don't fail because of lack of talent or opportunity. They fail because they don't know how to say no. Saying yes to everything seems noble, generous, even kind. But every time you say yes to what doesn't matter, you are saying no to your own life. I've seen young people with enormous dreams burn out because they didn't have the courage to reject the distractions of their friends. I've seen brilliant professionals trapped in commitments they never wanted because they feared saying no. I've seen parents exhausted, living for everyone but themselves because they feel guilty for putting themselves first. Remember this forever. Saying no to what doesn't elevate you is saying yes to your purpose. When someone asks for your time for something meaningless and you say no, you are protecting your energy. When someone tries to drag you into empty discussions and you say no, you are saving your peace. When someone attempts to impose their version of life upon you and you say no, you are defending your greatness. Real respect doesn't come from pleasing everyone. It comes from setting clear boundaries, from showing that you have a mission and that you are not willing to compromise it. The most successful people I've met are not the most agreeable or accommodating. They are the most self-aware. They know what they want. They know what they don't want, and they express it without fear. So here's your challenge. Start practicing the art of saying no with dignity. You don't need long excuses. A simple, firm, no thank you carries more power than 1,000 justifications. And every time you do it, you'll feel something shift inside. You'll feel your focus returning to you. Because in life, focus is not given. It is protected. And the courage to say no is the wall that guards your purpose. Now I want you to do something tonight. When you're alone, look at yourself in the mirror. Not the way you usually do, quickly while getting ready. Look deeply. Observe your eyes, your face, your expression. Ask yourself, am I truly living as the person I wish to become? The mirror never lies. It will show you if you're tired because you've ignored your well-being. It will show you if you're sad because you've denied your dreams. It will show you if you feel empty because you've lived more for others than for yourself. And in that moment, you will face two choices. You can continue covering your reality with excuses like, I don't have time. It's not the right moment. It's too late. Or you can face the truth with courage and decide to change. Jung would remind you that transformation does not begin in comfort, but in the honest confrontation with one's own reflection. And that reflection, the one that dares to see itself fully, is where the journey toward the self truly begins. Keep your promises to yourself, because trust is not built by what you say to the world, but by what you fulfill within. Every time you say, tomorrow I'll start, and don't, the mirror remembers. Every time you promise discipline and fail, the mirror reflects it. But every time you follow through, even with the smallest step, the mirror begins to show pride, dignity, and strength. Understand this. The most important relationship in your life is the one you have with yourself. If you respect yourself, others will respect you. If you abandon yourself, others will abandon you too. The mirror never lies because it reflects the truth of how you've treated your own soul. So tonight, when you face it, make a small but honest promise to yourself. It could be reading 10 pages, taking a short walk, writing your goals, or meditating for 5 minutes. The size doesn't matter. What matters is that you keep your word, because every fulfilled promise becomes another brick in the foundation of your self-trust. And when trust grows, focus becomes unshakable. Most people crave instant results. They exercise for a week and want a transformed body. They save money for a month and want financial freedom. They take one course and want to be experts, and when they don't see quick results, they quit. But Carl Jung taught that the most powerful transformations are invisible at first. When you start reading daily, it feels like nothing changes. When you begin to save, the amount seems insignificant. When you start meditating, discomfort is all you feel. But what's invisible accumulates, and one day, without realizing it, it becomes visible. I've seen it countless times. People who once felt stuck, after a year of quiet effort, become unrecognizable. Not because something magical happened, but because day after day, they planted in silence. Invisible progress builds empires. While others chase shortcuts, You build foundations, and real foundations never collapse. Think about this. Bamboo spends years growing underground when no one can see it. No applause, no recognition. It seems like nothing's happening, but when it finally breaks the surface, it grows meters in just weeks. Your life works the same way. The work you do in silence, the focus you maintain when no one's watching, will one day explode into results everyone will see. That's why you must never underestimate small steps. Never mock your slow progress, because each step you take toward yourself moves you away from the stagnation of others. Discipline is patience in motion. And if you have the patience to trust the process, one day the entire world will be astonished by your transformation. Understand this with absolute clarity. Your life doesn't change when governments change, when the economy shifts, or when people around you behave differently. Your life changes the day you decide to change. That is the true turning point. It's not in luck, inheritance, or anyone's approval. It lies in your decision. And that decision, my friend, is to focus on yourself. For years, I have seen the same scene repeat itself. A person arrives burdened by failure, head down, convinced it's too late, believing others have gone too far ahead. But after truly deciding to change, they return, months later, completely transformed. And the most surprising thing is that the world around them hasn't changed much. What changed was the way they saw themselves, because when you change, your entire perception of life changes, and with it, everything else begins to transform. When you change, your decisions change. When you change, the energy with which you walk through the world transforms as well. Let me ask you something. What would happen if, starting today, instead of focusing on what others do, you devoted yourself, with discipline, to your own growth? What would happen if, instead of wasting hours comparing yourself, you invested that time in learning a new skill, training your body, and strengthening your mind? What would happen if every day, even by just 1%, you became stronger, clearer, more disciplined? I'll tell you this, in a year, your life would be unrecognizable, and in 5 years, you might barely recognize yourself. But here's the problem. Most people never make that choice. They wait for the world to change. They wait for the perfect moment, but that moment never comes, because the only perfect moment is this one. Now look at your life as if it were a train. You're standing at a station. If you don't decide to get on the train of your own growth today, tomorrow it will be harder, the day after tomorrow more expensive, and in a year, the train might not even be there. The decision to focus on yourself cannot be postponed. Every day you do it, you gain strength. Every day you don't, you lose it. Carl Jung once said that the greatest tragedy of a human being is to spend life looking outward, never realizing that the treasure lies within. I've seen people who started with nothing and built empires simply because one day they said, "Enough. Today, I focus on myself, on my discipline, on my purpose." I've seen parents who, after years of sacrificing for everyone but themselves, decided to recover their strength, to study, to start a business, and their entire families were transformed. I've seen young people who seemed destined for mediocrity, but with one firm decision, rewrote their entire story. It all began with a spark, with that inner declaration, "Today, I choose to focus on myself." I want you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine 2 paths before you. On the first, everything stays the same. Distractions, comparisons, broken promises, constantly postponing what you know must be done. Imagine your life 5 years from now if nothing changes? Do you like what you see? Now imagine the second path. Each day, a small step forward. Not perfect, but constant. You read, you train, you work on your mind, you build habits. Imagine your life in 5 years if you start today. Do you feel the difference? The distance between those two paths isn't luck, genetics, or destiny. It's a single choice: to focus on yourself. So I want to invite you to something deeper. Don't leave this as a mere thought. Turn it into a declaration. Write it down right now. Today, I decide to focus on myself. Do it, because when you write it, you affirm it. When you declare it, you strengthen it. And when you share it, you commit to it. And listen carefully. The world will remain noisy. People will keep talking. Distractions will continue trying to steal your focus. Problems will never disappear. But when you are centered within yourself, when you become your own priority, none of that will stop you. Because greatness is never achieved under perfect external conditions. It is born from an unshakable inner focus, and that focus awakens the day you decide that your life will not be an accident, but a conscious project. So let me leave you with this truth. Everything can change starting today. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not next year. Today. Make yourself your mission. Make yourself your greatest investment. Make yourself your priority, and you'll see how, little by little, your entire world begins to transform. How many times have you postponed something truly important, promising yourself that tomorrow, yes, tomorrow things will be different? Maybe it was that crucial presentation for work, the one that could open new doors for your career, or that book that's been sitting on your shelf for months, the one you swore you'd read to feel inspired or to reconnect with something deeper in yourself. Or maybe it was something simpler, yet just as meaningful: finally organizing your personal space, creating an environment that reflects who you are and who you want to become. Sound familiar? That subtle yet persistent feeling that time is slipping through your fingers, even as the list of unfinished tasks grows longer and heavier by the day. You are far from alone in this. This invisible weight, this quiet resistance, has a name: procrastination. And while it's something almost all of us struggle with at some point, very few people truly understand what's behind it. You might be tempted to blame it on a lack of time, or maybe you tell yourself that you're just not motivated enough. Sometimes we believe we lack discipline, that we're lazy, or that we simply need to get it together. But what if I told you that the true root of procrastination is far deeper than any of that? That it's not really about time or laziness at all. According to the celebrated psychoanalyst Carl Jung, every action, or lack thereof, is shaped by something much more profound: a hidden internal dialogue. Beneath our choices, beneath our silence, beneath every instance of avoidance, there is an ongoing conversation taking place inside us. It is a conversation between our conscious self and the unseen parts of us, our emotions, our wounds, our fears, and our longings. Procrastination, then, is not merely the act of delaying. It's not just putting things off until later. It's a psychological message encoded in behavior. It's a reflection of the inner conflicts we carry quietly through our days. Every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," there is something unspoken, an inner voice you might not even realize you're listening to. A part of you that hesitates not because you're unmotivated, but because you're afraid. Afraid to fail, afraid to succeed, afraid that what you create might not be perfect, or that it might reveal something vulnerable about you. It's a signal. Something inside you is asking to be heard. Now just imagine for a second. What if that habit you find so frustrating could actually be a doorway to deeper self-awareness? What if, instead of constantly battling procrastination, you could learn to understand it, even use it as a tool to transform your life from within? Jung believed every internal conflict holds meaning, a hidden message waiting to be uncovered. Procrastination is no exception. Today, we're going to dive into the most hidden corners of your mind. We're going to explore how the ideas of Carl Jung can help you not only overcome procrastination, but also uncover why it happens, what it truly means, and how to use that insight to unlock your full potential. This isn't about a quick hack or some surface-level trick. It's about going inward, into the core of your behavior. I promise you this won't be just another video on how to be more productive. This will be a real encounter with yourself, with the parts of you that you often ignore, but that have so much to tell. So stay with me until the end, because what you'll discover today might not only change how you deal with your tasks, it could also transform the way you relate to yourself. Are you ready to begin? So what really happens when you procrastinate? Think about that moment when you choose to delay something important. Deep down, you know it should be done. But instead of moving forward, you drift off, maybe scrolling through social media, watching a random video, or even cleaning your room, something you'd never usually enjoy, except when there's something more urgent to avoid. But why does this happen? Procrastination isn't laziness or poor time management, as many people assume. Psychologically, it's a defense mechanism, a way of avoiding emotional discomfort tied to a certain task. That discomfort can take many forms: fear of failure, perfectionism, anxiety, or even an unconscious resistance to what that task represents. Carl Jung, through his deep exploration of the human unconscious, offers us a unique lens to understand this phenomenon. Jung spoke about the inner forces that divide us. Inside our psyche, there are parts that long for change, for growth, for action, but there are also parts that fear the unknown, that cling to the comfort of the familiar, even when it means staying stuck in place. These parts, often repressed or ignored, are what Jung referred to as the shadow. Procrastination is, in many cases, a clear sign of this inner conflict. We want to move forward, yet something within us holds us back. This self-sabotage is not simply laziness, it's a signal that something deeper within us needs our attention. Now take a moment to think about the world we live in today. We've never had so many distractions within such easy reach. In just a few seconds, we can plunge into an endless ocean of entertainment, messages, and notifications. These distractions serve as convenient escapes, giving us the instant gratification our mind craves, especially when we're faced with tasks that require effort or when we're trying to avoid difficult emotions. But the issue is that these distractions pull us further away from what truly matters. Procrastination, intensified by modern technology, traps us in a cycle of avoidance that only feeds our anxiety and sense of guilt. Over time, it chips away at our confidence, erodes our sense of purpose, and ultimately robs us of joy. This is why it's essential to recognize that procrastination isn't just a bad habit. It's a message from our mind. It's an invitation to explore those inner conflicts and resolve them with honesty and compassion. As Jung once said, what we fail to face within ourselves will eventually appear as fate. If we don't address these hidden patterns, we stay trapped, allowing our responsibilities and our lives to remain on hold. So, are you ready to uncover how this struggle can actually become a powerful ally for your growth? Let's take a deeper dive into this journey. Why do we truly procrastinate? It's not just about time, discipline, or willpower. The root of this behavior goes much deeper, and Jung gives us a crucial key to understanding it: the shadow. Jung described the shadow as that part of our psyche where we store the aspects of ourselves we'd rather not acknowledge. These are our insecurities, fears, repressed desires, and unresolved emotions. Instead of facing them, we tend to shove them into a dark corner of our minds, hoping that if we hide them well enough, they won't hurt us. But the shadow doesn't simply vanish. On the contrary, it keeps shaping our choices, our emotional reactions, and our behavior, often without us realizing it. In this sense, procrastination is more than just delaying a task. It becomes a subtle expression of our shadow. Each time we avoid something, we're actually saying, on a deeper level, I don't want to deal with what this task brings up in me. Take this example. Putting off an important work project might not just be laziness. It could be fear of failure or anxiety about not meeting expectations. Avoiding a difficult talk with a friend may reflect our discomfort with conflict or our fear of being rejected. In these ways, procrastination acts as a shield. By avoiding the task, we're also avoiding the uncomfortable emotions we don't want to face. And here's where it gets complicated. What we avoid doesn't go away. It grows stronger and finds new ways to hold us back. Let's make this more relatable. Imagine you have a crucial report to submit at work. You know it matters, but every time you sit down to work on it, you find yourself doing something else instead. Checking your email, tidying up your desk, even scrolling through social media. Why? Deep down, maybe you're afraid your work won't be good enough. That fear gets buried in your shadow, but it still shows up in the form of procrastination. And this doesn't just happen with work. It applies to personal goals too, like starting a fitness routine. It might not be a lack of motivation. It could be a deeper resistance to physical discomfort, or a fear of changing your identity. Jung believed that what we repress in our shadow doesn't disappear. It resurfaces in ways we don't always recognize. Avoiding tasks might seem small, but it's often a sign of inner conflict we haven't resolved. Procrastination subtly reveals the parts of ourselves that long to be acknowledged and integrated. The positive side is, the shadow isn't something we need to fear. In fact, Jung believed that facing and embracing it is crucial for personal growth. When we recognize our fears and insecurities, we take away their power to control us from the background. And by doing so, we start to free ourselves from patterns like procrastination. In the next section, we'll explore how to identify these internal patterns and how to work with them, rather than fight against them. Because as Jung said, one doesn't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And in that very darkness, you'll find the answers you've been searching for. Before overcoming procrastination, you must first understand it. As we've seen, it's not just a bad habit. It's a sign of internal conflicts that are asking to be heard. In order to change this pattern, you have to identify it. But how exactly can that be done? The key lies in self-exploration. You can't change what you don't understand. So the first step is to ask yourself, what tasks do I usually avoid? Make a mental list, or better yet, write it down. Are they tasks related to your job, or perhaps things in your personal life, like overdue conversations or major decisions. Once you've identified these tasks, ask yourself, what do they have in common? Do they often involve challenge, the fear of criticism, or the risk of not meeting expectations? Noticing the common themes behind what you avoid is the first real step to understanding your procrastination. Then reflect on the emotions involved. What do I feel when I procrastinate? Maybe guilt, knowing I'm avoiding what matters. Maybe anxiety just thinking about starting. Or maybe even brief relief from avoiding it until frustration returns. These emotions are like a compass, pointing directly at the inner conflicts that are calling for your attention. The third key question is, what do I think about myself when I procrastinate? It can be uncomfortable to ask, but it's a necessary step. When we avoid doing something important, we often fall into a cycle of harsh self-criticism. Thoughts like, I'm such a mess, or I'll never be good enough to do this right, tend to show up without warning. I'm a mess, or I'll never get this right. These beliefs often emerge from the hidden parts of our psyche, and it's these unconscious beliefs that keep us stuck. But when we become aware of them, we can begin to challenge and rewrite them. A powerful tool for this self-exploration is keeping a self-observation journal. Every time you catch yourself procrastinating, write down 4 simple things: the task you're avoiding, the emotions you're feeling, the thoughts running through your mind, and the activities you're using to distract yourself. This journal isn't just a way to track your habits. It's a mirror, one that helps you clearly see how procrastination shows up in your life and how deeply it affects you. As you write, you're bringing what's unconscious into the light, something Carl Jung believed was crucial for true personal growth. Remember, self-awareness is the first real step toward transformation. Once you can recognize your patterns, you can begin to collaborate with them instead of constantly fighting them. As Jung said, what we deny takes control of us. What we accept holds the power to transform us. Recognizing your procrastination patterns isn't just a useful practice. It's an act of courage. It's the decision to look within, to face the parts of yourself you've long ignored, and to finally start reshaping them. Now that the problem is clearer, you're ready for the next step. Learning how to turn procrastination into meaningful, productive action. Overcoming procrastination isn't about pushing harder or forcing action. In fact, the more you fight it, the more resistance you feel. Why? Because, as we've seen, procrastination is your inner self asking to be heard. The key isn't to fight it, but to listen, understand, and work with it. Here are some practical strategies, inspired by the ideas of Carl Jung, that can help you break this pattern. 1. Integrate your shadow. Face what you've been avoiding. The first step to overcoming procrastination is to acknowledge those parts of yourself you've been pushing away. Jung believed that what you resist doesn't go away, it grows stronger. If you avoid dealing with your fears or insecurities, they'll continue to shape your choices behind the scenes. So how do you face them? Next time you notice yourself procrastinating, pause and ask, what am I feeling right now? Or, what exactly am I trying to avoid? Maybe it's fear of failure, discomfort with stepping outside your comfort zone, or even facing the pressure of your own expectations. When you recognize and accept these emotions, they begin to lose their grip on you. 2. Break tasks into small, manageable steps. Procrastination often shows up when things feel too big, too heavy, or just too much. Your brain, sensing some kind of emotional or even physical threat, looks for an escape, often in the form of something easier or more pleasant. The answer is to shrink the task. Take that overwhelming job and break it into smaller, concrete actions. For example, instead of write the full report, start with open the document and type the title, or simply commit to working on it for 10 minutes. Just starting, even if it's tiny, can shift your momentum and give you the energy to keep going. This method doesn't just lower your anxiety levels, it also gives you small wins that slowly build up your self-confidence. 3. Make daily self-reflection a habit. Jung believed that self-observation was key to truly understanding who we are. Taking a few moments to reflect on your patterns of procrastination can help uncover their root causes and keep them from repeating. But how do you do it? Try setting aside a few minutes at the end of your day to write about what you accomplished and when you found yourself procrastinating. Ask yourself, what made me avoid that task? What did I feel in that moment? What can I try next time instead? This kind of reflection doesn't just keep you more aware, it helps create a more constructive and less judgmental inner dialogue. 4. Use positive affirmations and mental visualizations. Procrastination is often tied to negative thoughts about your ability to succeed. Jung reminds us that when we change our internal story, our mind can begin to reshape our reality. So how can you do this? You can repeat affirmations like, I'm fully capable of handling whatever comes my way, or every small step moves me closer to my goal. Or simply visualize how you'll feel once that task is complete. Picture yourself handing in the project confidently, or enjoying the calm that follows finishing something that once felt overwhelming. These mental images keep you connected to your motivation. 5. Create routines and practice conscious discipline. Inspiration is powerful, yes, but it's not always around. That's why solid routines matter. They remove constant decision-making and reduce chances to procrastinate. So how do you start? Set a schedule for your top priority tasks. Do the hardest ones when your energy is high. Eliminate distractions. Turn off notifications. Clean your space, or use strategies like the Pomodoro technique. Work for 25 minutes, then rest for 5. It keeps your mind fresh and focused. These aren't instant fixes, but they're powerful tools to reshape how you deal with procrastination. Use them, and you'll not only make progress, you'll also deepen your understanding of yourself. As Jung once said, nothing can truly change until it is first accepted. Judgment doesn't set us free, acceptance does. Now that these tools are within your reach, are you ready to take that first step? Because, as you know, real change begins with a conscious decision. Picture for a moment how your life would look if you stopped procrastinating. Think of those projects you've always wanted to finish, those personal goals you paused indefinitely, or the meaningful conversations you never dared to have. What would shift in your world if you began taking action instead of putting things off? Breaking the cycle of procrastination doesn't just reshape your days, it can transform your entire life. One of the first and most noticeable benefits is a boost in productivity. When you stop delaying tasks, you realize that what once felt overwhelming is more manageable than you thought. Getting things done doesn't just ease your stress, it sets off a chain reaction. Each task you complete gives you a new wave of energy and motivation to tackle the next one. It's like unlocking one door after another, letting your ideas and efforts flow freely. Beyond that, overcoming procrastination deeply impacts your self-esteem. Every time you avoid something, you might find yourself caught in a cycle of self-criticism, feeding a narrative that undermines your worth. I'm not good enough. I have no discipline. But when you start taking action, even if it's small steps, that story begins to shift. Each accomplishment, no matter how minor, proves to you that you're capable. And that realization boosts your confidence while helping you see yourself as someone who's competent and in control of their own life. Your relationships benefit too. Procrastination doesn't just affect your own responsibilities. Often, we delay apologies, difficult conversations, or even the simple act of spending meaningful time with those we care about. When you break that habit, you become more present, more engaged, and more accountable in your interactions. This helps build trust and respect, and it brings more depth and authenticity to your connections. But perhaps the most powerful part of defeating procrastination is that it opens up access to your untapped potential. Many of the most successful people in history had to face their own battles with procrastination in order to accomplish their dreams. Take writers like Victor Hugo, for example. He devised systems to force himself to write, including locking himself in a room without clothes or distractions until he finished his work. The result? Legacies that have transcended generations. Now think about yourself. What could you accomplish if you stopped making excuses and finally decided to take action? Maybe there's a hidden talent within you that you've never explored because you keep telling yourself, "I'll do it tomorrow." Maybe that project you've been avoiding could not only change your life, but someone else's too. Overcoming procrastination isn't just about finishing tasks. It's the key that unlocks the path toward a more powerful and authentic version of who you truly are. When you choose to let go of procrastination, you're making a decision to invest in your future, your potential, and in your dreams. And always remember, every small step you take matters. It's not about perfection, it's about moving forward, even if it's just a little more each day. As Carl Jung once said, what you do today can transform every tomorrow that follows. So now the question is, what will you do with this very moment? As we reach the end of this journey, take a second to pause and reflect. We've explored what procrastination really is, how it connects to deeper layers of your mind according to Jung, and how to recognize and overcome the internal patterns that keep you stuck. We also talked about practical tools, integrating your shadow, breaking tasks down, engaging in self-reflection, and creating routines that shift the course of your life. But none of this matters if you don't make the choice to act. Today, I want to invite you to take one step, just one, toward that task you've been avoiding. You don't have to fix everything right now. Just choose one thing you've put off, no matter how small, and give it 10 minutes. It's not about how far you get. It's about starting. That small effort won't just ease the anxiety that comes with procrastination, it'll also send a powerful message to your mind. I can do this. Remember, overcoming procrastination isn't something that changes overnight. It's a journey of self-discovery, one that doesn't happen all at once, but rather unfolds in a series of small, seemingly ordinary steps. These steps, taken consistently and with intention, have the power to guide you toward a life that feels more real, more aligned, and more fulfilling. And while each individual action may seem insignificant on its own, together they create a powerful force for change. Every single thing you do, no matter how minor it appears, is part of a larger story that you're writing day by day. Each time you choose to show up for yourself, to keep a promise you made, to stay present instead of escaping, you're building something. Every task you complete, Every fear you confront, every time you do the uncomfortable thing instead of the easy one, you're moving closer to the version of yourself you're meant to become. Not the version that pleases others or checks off boxes, but the one that truly reflects who you are when no one else is watching. Because, as Carl Jung once said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. And maybe that's exactly what you're being called to do right now, to awaken, to finally open your eyes, not just to the world around you, but to the universe that exists within you. To stop running from your reflection and instead begin to embrace it. Thanks for staying until the end. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss out on what's next. See you in the next video. Did you know that every single day you make thousands of decisions without even realizing it? You're not alone in this. We all do. But what's truly astonishing is that behind each of these decisions, there's a silent, invisible force guiding your actions. Carl Jung called this force the unconscious. And what if I told you that instead of fighting it, if you learn to cooperate with this inner force, you could radically transform your life in just a few weeks? Stay with me, because over the next few minutes, you're going to learn exactly how. Now imagine, just for a moment, that within you lives a presence, a wise, intuitive part of you that already holds the answers you're searching for. It knows what kind of relationships will nourish you, what purpose aligns with your soul, and who you truly are beyond the masks you wear. This inner guide is not a fantasy. It's very real. Jung dedicated his life to studying it. He found that this part of you is constantly trying to speak to you through your dreams, your emotions, the gut instincts you sometimes ignore, and regret ignoring later. The real problem is that most people have lost touch with this deeper wisdom. They walk through life on autopilot, reacting instead of choosing, trapped in unconscious patterns they don't even know exist. They repeat the same toxic cycles, attract the same frustrating relationships, make the same disempowering choices, and wonder why nothing changes. But today, something can change, because you're about to learn not only what the unconscious truly is, according to Jung, but how to become its ally. You'll learn how to listen to its signals, how to decode its language, and how to harness its power to create a life that finally feels like your own. And by the end of this video, you'll walk away with practical tools that you can apply tonight. Not someday, not eventually. Tonight. Let's begin with something that can alter your entire perspective. Jung discovered that living within your unconscious is something he called the shadow. But before you assume it's something dark or dangerous, let me explain why this shadow might actually be your greatest source of power. Your shadow isn't your evil side. It's everything you've been conditioned to reject, suppress, or deny about yourself in order to be accepted by others. It's that part of you that speaks the truth when everyone else is lying. That energy that rises up when someone tries to cross your boundaries. That raw, creative spark you buried long ago because someone told you it was silly or unrealistic. Jung said something revolutionary. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. What does that mean in practical terms? It means that the moments that irritate or disturb you the most, those intense emotional reactions, are messages. Your shadow is revealing something to you. That person you can't stand, They may be mirroring a trait you secretly carry but haven't accepted. That behavior that triggers you, it might be something you've repressed because you were taught it wasn't okay to express it. Now here's where the real transformation begins. When you start to recognize and integrate your shadow, you stop being a victim of your own projections. You stop attracting the same painful lessons over and over because you no longer need them to understand yourself. You reclaim the parts of you that were exiled, and with that comes an incredible sense of authenticity and inner freedom. You become whole. You become magnetic. Here's an exercise you can try right now. Think of someone who deeply annoys or irritates you. Someone whose presence triggers you in a visceral way. Maybe you feel it in your chest, your stomach, your throat. Now ask yourself, what specific quality in this person bothers me the most? Name it. Then ask, is there any part of me that also possesses this quality, but that I've denied, suppressed, or hidden from the world? Be honest. It's not easy, but this is one of the first steps toward reclaiming the power you've unknowingly projected onto others. When you begin to integrate your shadow, you reclaim energy you didn't even know you were losing. And more importantly, you regain your ability to choose your reactions consciously rather than letting your unconscious drive the car. If what I'm saying resonates with you, take a moment to like this video. That small action tells the algorithm this is valuable content, and it helps it reach more people who are ready to awaken to a deeper level of self-awareness. And that brings us to one of Jung's most profound discoveries, one that could forever change the way you look at your relationships. Jung found that the unconscious isn't just a jumble of repressed memories or hidden emotions. It's also populated by something he called archetypes, universal patterns that shape human behavior and perception across cultures and time. And among these archetypes, one of the most powerful is the anima and the animus, the inner feminine and masculine images that live inside all of us. These are not gendered roles, but symbolic energies that represent our inner blueprint for love and connection. Here's the astonishing truth. You don't fall in love with people. You fall in love with the projection of your unconscious ideal that they seem to match. Let that sink in. Your idea of the perfect partner didn't come from thin air. It was formed through childhood experiences, unmet emotional needs, early heartbreaks, cultural stories, and even the traits you wish you had within yourself. When someone walks into your life and seems to fit that inner template, your unconscious lights up. It whispers, "This is the one." But what you're really seeing is not the person. It's your own psyche being mirrored back to you. And this is why relationships can feel like fate, and why they can also break you apart. Because eventually, the projection fades, reality sets in, and you're forced to confront not only who the other person truly is, but also what parts of yourself you've been trying to find outside of you. The goal, then, is not to eliminate these projections, but to recognize them, to work with them, to use relationships as mirrors that reflect your own inner landscape, so that you can reclaim what's yours and stop expecting someone else to complete you. This is the essence of Jungian inner work, to bring the unconscious into consciousness, to make peace with the parts of you you've hidden, to learn the language of dreams, symbols, intuition, and triggers. And as you do, something remarkable happens. Life stops happening to you and begins happening through you. You stop living the same story on repeat. You begin to evolve. And the most beautiful part, you don't have to wait years for this to begin. You can start now, by paying attention, by sitting with your discomfort instead of avoiding it, by asking what your emotions are trying to tell you, by listening to your dreams, and by treating every interaction, especially the difficult ones, as opportunities for inner growth. Jung explained it this way: whatever remains unconscious within us returns as fate. This means that until you become aware of what you're truly seeking in a partner, you'll keep attracting the same dynamics over and over again. Have you ever wondered why you always end up with the same kind of person? Why, even when you change partners, the problems feel oddly familiar? It's because your unconscious is operating from a pattern you haven't brought to light. Let me give you a concrete example. Maybe you grew up with an emotionally distant father. Your unconscious might have developed the belief that love must be earned, that the people you love eventually leave, or that you need to be perfect to deserve attention. As a result, you're unconsciously drawn to emotionally unavailable people, not because it's what you want, but because it feels familiar, because it confirms what your unconscious believes is normal. But once you bring that pattern into awareness, everything shifts. You gain the power to choose consciously. You can ask yourself, am I choosing this person because they truly align with me, or because they trigger a familiar but unhealthy pattern? Here's a powerful exercise. Make a list of all your meaningful past romantic relationships. Next to each name, write down what those people had in common, not physically, but emotionally. How did they make you feel? What role did you play in those relationships? What need of yours did they seem to fulfill at first? Once you identify the patterns, ask yourself, have these patterns led me to relationships that nourish me and help me grow, or have they kept me stuck in draining dynamics? That awareness is the first step toward breaking free from unconscious loops and beginning to build relationships from a place of abundance rather than lack. Are you starting to feel something clicking in your mind? Perfect, because now we're going to explore something Jung considered one of the most powerful forces of the unconscious, yet something most people completely overlook. Jung discovered something he called synchronicity, those seemingly impossible coincidences we've all experienced but often dismiss as chance. Jung understood these are not coincidences at all, but messages from your unconscious, guiding you towards something meaningful. Have you noticed how sometimes you hear about something or someone repeatedly in a short period of time, or how opportunities aligned with your thoughts appear just as you're considering a big life change? Jung would say, your unconscious is aligning external events with your inner reality. But here's the crucial point. Synchronicity only works when you're paying attention, when you're present, attuned to your instincts, not lost in the mental noise of daily life. Jung described it this way: synchronicity is a causal connecting principle that manifests when the observer is in a state of deep emotional engagement. In other words, when you're emotionally involved in something, when it truly matters to you, your unconscious begins to conspire in your favor. Let me tell you how to begin working consciously with synchronicity. First, you need to be clear about what you really want, not what you think you should want, not what others expect from you, but what your heart genuinely desires. Second, you need to pay attention to the signs, the casual conversation that gives you exactly the answer you needed, the book that randomly falls off the shelf in front of you, that person who appears at the perfect moment. But the key is to take action when these signs arrive. Synchronicity is not just about receiving messages, it's about having the courage to follow them. Your unconscious can open doors, but it's you who must walk through them. Starting this very week, try this experiment. Every morning, before checking your phone or jumping into your day's obligations, take 5 minutes to connect with yourself. Breathe deeply and ask, what do I need to know today? Where is my intuition leading me? Then, throughout the day, stay alert for any coincidence, any symbol, anything that seems to answer that question. At first, it might seem foolish, but after a few weeks, you'll start noticing patterns. You'll begin to see how your unconscious is actually working with you, guiding you toward what's right and away from what doesn't serve you. Can you see how different your life could be if you truly trusted this inner wisdom? If you allowed your unconscious to become an ally instead of a mysterious force you ignore. And this leads us to what Jung saw as the heart of all psychological growth, the process he called individuation. But don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. In fact, it might be the very key you've been searching for to finally feel whole. Individuation is simply the process of becoming who you really are, not who others expect you to be. It's the path toward total integrity, where you no longer live fragmented, where there's no longer a war between what you feel inside and what you show on the outside. Jung understood that most people live through what he called a mask, the persona. It's the edited version of yourself you present to the world to be accepted, to avoid rejection, to keep the peace. The problem is, when you wear this mask for too long, you lose touch with your real essence. Individuation demands that you slowly remove that mask, that you reveal your real vulnerability, that you express your authentic opinions even if they're unpopular, that you pursue what truly excites you, even if no one else understands. Jung used to say, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But becoming who you are isn't passive. It requires daily, conscious decisions. It requires choosing authenticity over comfort. It means being willing to disappoint others so you don't disappoint yourself. Here's a powerful question Jung would ask to see if someone was truly on the path of individuation. Do the decisions you make every day bring you closer to who you really are, or do they pull you away from yourself just to please others? Think about the choices you've made this week. That response you gave during a conversation, did it reflect your truth, or did you just say what you thought the other person wanted to hear? That weekend plan, was it something you genuinely wanted, or something you felt obligated to do? Individuation begins with small truths, with tiny acts of authenticity, with moments where you choose your inner voice over social convenience. And even if it feels awkward at first, you'll eventually begin to feel something Jung described as the sensation of being alive. When you live from your authentic center, when your actions match your true values, when there's no longer internal conflict between who you are and who you pretend to be, you experience a kind of peace and strength that can't be obtained any other way. I'm going to give you a mantra to repeat whenever you're tempted to betray yourself in order to keep external harmony. Say this to yourself: I choose integrity over comfort. I choose being real over being liked. I trust that the right people will love my authenticity. Do you feel the energy behind those words? That's your soul, recognizing its truth. That's your unconscious confirming you're on the right path. And now we arrive at Jung's deepest discovery, one that could transform not just how you see yourself, but how you experience every relationship, every challenge, and every opportunity in life. Jung realized that the unconscious works through what he called the union of opposites. Inside, you exist forces that seem contradictory. But when you learn to integrate them, they become your greatest source of strength and wisdom. Within you exists the capacity to be both strong and vulnerable. These two forces are not opposites in conflict. They are complementary aspects of your nature. Society often pressures you to choose one, to be unshakably strong, to never show weakness, or to be emotionally open, even if it means feeling exposed. But Carl Jung understood something deeper, something revolutionary. He realized that true personal power arises from your ability to access both of these qualities in harmony, depending on what life requires of you in the moment. It's not about choosing strength or vulnerability. It's about knowing when to be strong and when to be vulnerable. It's about recognizing that you can stand firm when necessary, but also open your heart when connection calls. You can be independent without shutting others out, and you can allow deep intimacy without losing yourself. This is what Jung called the integration of opposites, the inner union that leads to wholeness. You also carry within you the ability to give and to receive. These are not merely actions, they are states of being. For many, especially those who have experienced emotional pain or betrayal, one side becomes dominant. Some become compulsive givers, constantly pouring themselves into others, but never allowing love or support to flow back in. Others become so guarded, so afraid of being hurt again, that they close themselves off from giving love freely. Jung recognized that emotional well-being doesn't come from clinging to one of these poles. Instead, it emerges when you can move fluidly between giving and receiving. When you understand the balance, you begin to respond to life from a place of fullness rather than fear or habit. Jung once said, "There is no light without shadow, and no psychic wholeness without imperfection." That insight holds a powerful truth. Your relentless pursuit of being perfectly good, perfectly strong, perfectly independent, or perfectly anything actually undermines your growth. Why? Because in that quest for perfection, you're denying half of your humanity. Have you ever noticed that the people we are most drawn to, the ones we deeply respect or feel magnetically pulled toward, are not the ones who seem perfect in a single way? Instead, they are those who embody multiplicity. They can be powerful, yet gentle. They can lead with authority, yet reveal their wounds. They can be serious, yet burst into laughter. That ability to hold contradictions without falling apart, that's what Jung meant by the totality of the self. And this is exactly what your unconscious is trying to teach you through every difficult experience you face. Every time you encounter inner conflict, every time you feel pulled in two directions, every time you hold contradictory desires within you, your unconscious is not punishing you, it's inviting you to expand your idea of what it means to be a complete human being. Rather than labeling these internal contradictions as problems you must solve by picking one side, Jung would urge you to pause and ask yourself, how can I honor both parts of me? How can I create a path forward that doesn't reject but includes these opposing forces? Here's a transformative practice. Take a moment and identify a current inner conflict. Maybe it's the tension between craving deep intimacy while also fiercely valuing your independence. Maybe it's the struggle between pursuing worldly success and longing for time to enjoy simple, quiet pleasures. Instead of pressuring yourself to choose one, ask a more powerful question. What kind of life would allow me to honor both of these needs? This is the shift from division to integration. And when you start thinking this way, you'll discover creative solutions and new possibilities that were previously hidden from you. You begin to live from your wholeness, not your fragmentation. And that's when life begins to feel truly alive, truly meaningful. Say these words out loud and feel them resonate through your being. I am large enough to hold apparent contradictions. My complexity is my strength. I embrace the full spectrum of my humanity. Can you feel how those words awaken something deep inside you? That sensation is not a trick of the mind. It's your unconscious recognizing a profound truth. It's the feeling of coming home to yourself. Now, after this deep journey into the mysteries of your unconscious, take a moment to really appreciate what you've uncovered. These aren't just lofty ideas or spiritual theories. They are real keys to meaningful, lasting transformation. You've learned that your shadow, the parts of you you've tried to suppress or ignore, aren't your enemy. They are your most powerful allies. You've discovered that your patterns in relationships, even the painful ones, aren't random. They're messages from your unconscious that you can decode, understand, and change. You've realized that the synchronicities in your life, the strange coincidences, the unexpected encounters, are not mere accidents. They are guideposts, signals from something deeper, calling you to alignment. You've begun to understand that becoming your true self isn't a final destination. It's a sacred daily practice, a choice, moment by moment, to favor authenticity over convenience. And most importantly, you've begun to see that your true power doesn't come from being flawless in a single role, but from embracing all the facets of your being. The warrior and the healer, the leader and the lover, the dreamer and the doer. Carl Jung spent his entire life exploring the depths of the human psyche, and he arrived at a truth that still challenges modern thinking. You don't need to be fixed, because you're not broken. What you need is integration. You need to become conscious of what is unconscious. You need to partner with the deepest, wisest parts of yourself. Your unconscious has never been against you. It has been working on your behalf, your whole life. It speaks to you through emotions you try to suppress, through dreams you don't understand, through attractions that confuse you, and through rejections you can't explain. Every pattern is a clue, every discomfort is a message, and every experience, no matter how painful, is a lesson pointing you toward your wholeness. It's been guiding you, not away from yourself, but back to your most authentic self, back to deeper connections, richer relationships, and a life infused with purpose. So now, the question is this: are you ready to listen? Are you ready to trust that inner wisdom you've spent years ignoring? Are you ready to stop fighting yourself and start working with yourself? If your answer is yes, if you feel even the faintest readiness for that level of self-discovery and transformation, then I invite you to write in the comments, "I trust my inner wisdom." Let's see how many souls are truly prepared for this kind of shift. And if this message stirred something deep within you, if you feel you need to hear it again, or if someone in your life is struggling and could benefit from these truths, don't hesitate. Share it. Spread it. Jung's work reminds us that when one person wakes up to their truth, it creates ripples that help others awaken too. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because in the next video, we'll dive even deeper into one of Jung's most fascinating topics: how to interpret the messages your unconscious sends through your dreams. And remember, your unconscious is not something you have. It's something you are. It's not a foreign territory to conquer. It's your inner home. And now, you hold the keys to that sacred door. Trust the journey. Trust your wisdom. And most of all, trust that you already carry within you everything you need to create the life your soul longs to live.